let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. Have you ever given your whole life to someone? I don't just mean money or time. I mean your body, your strength, your dreams, your health, every ounce of who you are, all poured into one person because you believe, with your whole heart, that they are worth it. Have you ever done that? And then, have you ever had that very same person look you straight in the eye and treat you like you don't matter, like you're just some burden they have to put up with? If you haven't, God bless you. Hold on tight to the people who love you right. But if you have, then maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. First of all, thank you. Thank you for being here, for choosing to listen to me, for letting my voice fill your room or your headphones. You don't know how much that means to me. Sometimes I feel invisible, like the years of my life slipped by and no one even noticed. But right now, you're here, and I'm here, and that matters. Tell me, where are you right now? Whatever time it is, whatever place you're in, I want you to know I'm grateful you're sharing it with me. My name is Mavis Turner. I've lived in Madison, Wisconsin my whole life. If you've never been here, let me paint a picture for you. Winters in Madison are fierce. We get snow so high it swallows the sidewalks, and winds that cut through your coat like knives. You learn early to keep your head down, keep moving, and never let the cold beat you. Summers, though, are sweet. Kids riding bikes, folks grilling out in their yards, the lakes shimmering in the sunlight. It's a hard-working city, a place where you measure people, not by what they say but by what they do. And I worked. I had my son Daniel when I was young and unprepared. His father didn't stick around. That left just me and this tiny little baby, wrapped in a hospital blanket, with eyes too bright for this hard world. I remember holding him and whispering a promise. I told him I would give him everything I had. I swore I would make his life better than mine, no matter what it cost me. And I meant it. I worked any job I could find. During the day, I scrubbed floors in houses where the owners barely remembered my name. Evenings, I bagged groceries, smiled at strangers, while my feet ached inside cheap shoes. Nights, if someone needed a babysitter, I was there with a thermos full of coffee and a notebook where I scribbled bills and numbers until my eyes blurred. My hands cracked from cleaning chemicals, my back screamed from lifting too much, and my soul was tired. But every dollar I saved, every meal I skipped, so Daniel could eat, every coat I bought secondhand so he could have a new one, it all felt worth it, because I was building something for him, a future. There were times I thought I couldn't go on, like the night our heat went out, in the dead of winter. I bundled Daniel in blankets and held him close, rocking him until morning, praying he wouldn't get sick. I cried quietly so he wouldn't hear, but when the sun came up, I went back to work, because mothers don't get the luxury of giving up. When Daniel was little, he would throw his arms around my neck after dinner, even if all we had was macaroni and cheese from a box, and he'd whisper, "Best mom ever." Those words were like gold. They filled me with a strength I didn't know I had. I lived off those words. Years went by. Daniel grew tall, smart, handsome. He had opportunities I never dreamed of because I worked myself raw to give them to him. And when he graduated college, the first in our family to do so, I thought, this is it. This is the moment all the sacrifices pay off. I clapped until my hands stung, tears running down my face. And in that moment, I believed he understood, that he knew what it took to get him there, that he saw me. But life has a cruel way of breaking you right when you think you're safe. Daniel got married a few years later. Claire, pretty, polished, confident. I welcomed her. Of course I did. She was family now, and I wanted her to feel it. I cooked dinners, cleaned up after them, tried to stay out of the way when they wanted time alone. I thought things were fine, but little by little, I felt the walls shift around me. Conversations would go quiet when I walked into the room. They shared little glances, polite smiles, the kind that don't reach the eyes. I'd hear them talk about privacy, about wanting their own space. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was being sensitive. That's what mothers do, right? We doubt ourselves. We blame ourselves. Then came the night everything changed. It was an ordinary dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, a meal made with love, like all the ones before. We sat at the table, the three of us. I remember the sound of the fork against the plate, the clink of glasses, the hum of the refrigerator. And then Daniel put down his fork. He looked at me with a face I barely recognized. His eyes, those same blue eyes that once held nothing but love for me, were cold. And he said, clear as day, "Mom, this is my house now. If you want to stay here, you'll have to pay rent." Rent, I swear. In that moment, I felt the ground open up beneath me. Rent, in the house I nearly broke myself to keep. Rent, from the son whose entire world I built with my bare hands. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake, some cruel joke, but his face didn't waver. Claire's lips curved into the faintest little smile, like she'd been waiting for this moment, and me, I froze. I couldn't breathe, couldn't swallow. The mashed potatoes on my plate turned to ash in my mouth. I wanted to scream, to stand up and shout, "This is my home. I bled for this place. I froze and starved and broke my body to give you a life in these walls." But nothing came out, just silence, my silence. I went to bed that night, but I didn't sleep. The wind howled outside, snow tapped against the glass, but inside me was a storm fiercer than anything Madison weather could throw. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying my entire life, every sacrifice, every scar, every dream I buried, and the cruel thought kept circling in my mind, none of it mattered. Not to him, not anymore. Do you know what it feels like to realize the person you love most in this world sees you as disposable, like all the years of your life were nothing but background noise? I wanted to disappear, to melt into the mattress and vanish, but another thought kept me awake too. A memory, something Daniel didn't know. You see, years ago, when I was finally able to scrape together enough money, I bought this house, with my own 2 hands, with sweat and blood and years of sacrifice. I made the down payment, the deed, the mortgage, the papers. They were in my name, mine. I never told Daniel. He was too young to understand then, and later. Well, I guess I wanted him to feel like it was his too, that he belonged here. I thought it would make him proud. I thought it would bind us together. Lying there that night, his words ringing in my ears, "Pay rent." I remembered those papers tucked away in a box, proof that I wasn't the guest here, proof that I wasn't crazy, or weak, or unwanted, proof that this home was mine. I didn't pull them out that night. No, I let the secret sit inside me, heavy and burning, because part of me wanted to see how far he'd go, how deep his betrayal would cut, and another part of me was just too broken to face it yet. But make no mistake, something had shifted inside me. The woman who once sacrificed everything without question, she was gone. What rose in her place was someone harder, someone who had been pushed too far. And though Daniel didn't know it yet, the game he thought he was playing was about to turn on him. Because love can endure a lot, hunger, exhaustion, loneliness, but there is one thing love should never have to swallow: disrespect. And that night, in the silence of my room, I made a promise. Not to Daniel this time, not to anyone else. I made it to myself, that I would not let them erase me, that I would not be written out of the life I built, that someday soon, the truth would come crashing down on them, like the very storms of Madison they thought they'd weathered. And when that day came, they would remember exactly who Mavis Turner is. Asterisk asterisk, you know, I've often wondered what truth really is. Is it just a fact on paper, a number, a name, a deed stamped with ink? Or is it something deeper? The way your chest burns when you've swallowed a lie too long, the way your bones ache with the weight of secrets you never meant to keep. If truth is only what's written down, then maybe it can be ignored, misplaced, forgotten. But if truth is what lives in us, then sooner or later it claws its way out. After that night when Daniel told me I had to pay rent, I carried a silence inside me, a silence heavy as the snow piling on the Madison streets. I cooked breakfast the next morning like nothing had happened. I stirred oatmeal, cracked eggs, fried bacon, while Daniel scrolled on his phone, and Claire smiled politely. But inside me, I was screaming. Every time Daniel lifted his coffee mug, I thought, that mug is sitting on a table I paid for, in a house I bought, my house. Every word he spoke tasted like betrayal, even the simple ones, like pass the salt. But I didn't show it, not yet. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is play the fool until you know exactly how deep the knife has been pushed. The papers I kept, the deed to the house, the receipts, the years of bills with my name etched across them, were hidden in a cedar box tucked away in my bedroom closet. That box smelled faintly of lavender from the sachet I'd placed inside years ago. I remember running my hand across its lid one afternoon while Daniel and Claire were out shopping. My fingers trembled, not because I doubted what I'd find, but because touching that box felt like touching the life I'd buried for too long. Proof of who I was, proof that I wasn't some guest under their roof, proof that this place was built on the sweat of my body, not theirs. I didn't open it. Not yet, I told myself. Not today. Not until the time is right, because a truth like that, it's not something you waste. You don't throw it out in a petty argument. You hold it. You wait. You let it grow heavier until the day comes when dropping it on the table cracks the wood in half. Meanwhile, life in that house became unbearable. Little things, always little things, chipped away at me. Claire would sigh when I sat in the living room too long, like my presence contaminated the air. Daniel would forget to invite me to dinners, only telling me after the fact how wonderful the evening had been. They started locking the liquor cabinet, as if I'd ever taken a sip without asking. Once, Claire even told me, in that soft, polite voice that hides the venom underneath, that maybe I'd be more comfortable moving into one of those senior apartments across town. Imagine that, me, the woman who fought through blizzards with groceries in my arms, who worked double shifts to keep this roof from collapsing, being told to shuffle off to some apartment like I was excess furniture. I swallowed it all, because I needed to see how far Daniel would let it go, how much of me he'd erased before I put the truth in front of him. Then came the bills. One morning, an envelope slid under my bedroom door. I picked it up, heart pounding, already knowing. Inside was a neatly typed letter from Daniel. Mom, it began, as we discussed, here is a breakdown of your monthly rent and utilities. Rent, utilities, my own son, itemizing costs like I was some stranger crashing in his guest room. $854 rent, $124 gas and electric, $64 internet, a grand total of $1,030, due on the first of each month. I sat on the edge of my bed holding that paper, and I laughed. Not a happy laugh, no, a laugh that cracked out of me like glass breaking, because I realized, in that moment, he truly believed it. He truly thought this was his house, his rules, his power, and I was nothing but a tenant. That laugh turned to tears, hot and shameful. I crumpled the paper in my fist until it cut into my palm. I wanted to march into the kitchen, throw it at his feet, and scream, "Look at the name on that deed, you ungrateful boy." But I didn't, not yet. Instead, I smoothed the paper out, folded it carefully, and slid it into the cedar box alongside the deed. Another piece of evidence, another brick in the wall of truth I was building. The days blurred. I went about my routines, cooking, cleaning, pretending not to notice the way Claire whispered to Daniel when I entered the room, pretending not to see the disdain in his eyes when I asked simple questions, like when the trash would be picked up or whether he'd like dinner early, pretending not to feel the sting when he called me Mavis instead of Mom. That was the worst of all. Not the bills, not the rent, not even the suggestion to leave. The worst was hearing my son strip away my name, my place in his life, Mavis, like I was just a woman who happened to live there, like I wasn't the arms that carried him through fevered nights, the hands that sewed his torn clothes, the back that bent under the weight of his future. You think you know pain, then your child calls you by your first name, and suddenly, pain has a whole new meaning. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out that cedar box. My hands shook as I lifted the lid, the lavender scent rising like a ghost from the past. There they were, the mortgage papers, the deed stamped with my name, the insurance bills, the receipts, and now, that letter from Daniel, folded neat and small, like it was ashamed of itself. I spread them all across my bed, proof of my life, proof of my truth. I traced my name on the deed with my finger, Mavis L. Turner, bold, permanent, undeniable. My name, not his. My home, not his. I whispered it to myself over and over, like a prayer. This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. But then a thought struck me. If this truth was so powerful, why hadn't I used it yet? Why did I let myself suffer, day after day, while the proof sat hidden in a box? The answer came like a whisper. Because truth changes everything. Once I showed those papers, nothing would ever be the same. Daniel would see me not as the weak, disposable woman he thought I was, but as the owner, the one with real power. And what then? Would he hate me for it? Would he leave me altogether? Would the fragile thread of family between us snap for good? I folded the papers back into the box. Not yet, not tonight, but soon, very soon. The breaking point came faster than I expected. It was a Sunday afternoon. Snow was falling thick and heavy, muffling the world outside. Daniel and Claire sat on the couch, whispering and laughing. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, the smell of onions and garlic filling the air. Then I heard Daniel's voice, sharp and impatient. "Mavis," he called, Not mom, never mom anymore. Can you come in here a sec? I wiped my hands and stepped into the living room. Daniel held an envelope. My heart dropped before he even spoke. We've decided, he said, eyes flicking toward Claire, who smirked like a cat with crim. It would be best if you found another place to live. We gave you plenty of time, and it's not working anymore. He handed me the envelope. This is 60 days notice. 60 days. I stood there, staring at the paper in his hand, my ears ringing. My son was evicting me from the house I bought, the house I paid for with every scar on my body, every coin I scraped together, evicting me as if I were nothing. I didn't take the paper. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at him, at the stranger who wore my son's face, and I thought, now is the time. I walked down the hall, into my bedroom, and opened the cedar box. My hands were steady now. I pulled out the deed, the mortgage, the insurance bills, and that crumpled rent letter. I carried them back into the living room, laid them carefully on the coffee table, and stepped back. Daniel frowned. What's this? I looked him straight in the eye. This, I said, my voice calm, almost cold, is the truth. He reached for the papers, scanning them quickly. At first, confusion, then disbelief, then anger. His face turned red, his jaw clenched. What is this supposed to mean? He demanded. It means, I said, each word heavy as stone, that this house isn't yours. It never was. It's mine. I bought it. I paid for it. Every bill, every repair, every coat of paint on these walls. All mine. And you, Daniel, you've been living here because I let you, not the other way around. Claire's smile vanished. Daniel's hands shook as he gripped the papers. You're lying, he spat. But the ink on those documents was unshakable. My name, not his, mine. For the first time in years, I felt taller, stronger, like the cold Madison wind couldn't touch me. You wanted me to pay rent, I said, my voice rising. You wanted me to leave. Well, let me make it clear. If anyone's leaving, it won't be me. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Daniel's face twisted, torn between rage and something else. Shame, maybe. Claire stood, her mouth open, no words coming out, and me. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power, not because of the deed, not because of the papers, but because I finally spoke the truth I'd buried too long. That moment, that was the beginning of the end of the lies, the end of their control. The truth was out now, and once truth escapes, it doesn't go back in the box. Do you know what silence sounds like after the truth has been spoken? It's not quiet, not really. It hums, it burns, it presses against your skin like heat from a fire too close. That's what it felt like in that living room. After I laid the papers down, after Daniel read my name and realized every word he'd spoken about rent and eviction had shattered against the brick wall of truth, I can still see his face red, twisted, trembling at the edges. Claire stood beside him, her mouth half open, the color drained from her cheeks. She looked less like the polished woman I had once welcomed into this house, and more like a child caught with her hand in the jar. They didn't expect this. They never dreamed I had the strength, the foresight, the courage to keep something so powerful hidden away. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one shrinking into the shadows. They were. Daniel slammed the papers back onto the coffee table so hard the cedar box rattled. So what? He shouted, his voice cracking with rage. You think this makes you some kind of queen? You think waving around old papers changes anything? This is my life now, Claire's life, not yours. You're just, he stopped. But I saw the word forming on his lips, just a burden. He didn't say it, but it hung in the air all the same. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I'd flinched enough times in my life. Careful, Daniel, I whispered, my voice steady as a winter lake. The next word out of your mouth will decide whether you ever sit at this table again. The silence roared louder. Even the house itself seemed to listen. The pipes groaned. The furnace clicked on. The snow outside beat against the window. Claire placed a hand on his arm, trying to steady him. Daniel, she murmured, her eyes flicking nervously toward me. Maybe we should. No, he snapped, shaking her off. His hands shook as he pointed at me. You've been manipulating me my whole life, haven't you? Making me think you were sacrificing for me, when really you were just controlling me. That's what this is about. Control. Those words cut deeper than any rent bill, any eviction notice. Control. If only he knew the nights I went without eating so he could have seconds. The winters I went without boots so his feet would stay warm. If only he knew how many dreams I buried just to keep him afloat. Control? No, it had never been controlled. It had been love. Raw, painful, endless love. And now that love sat before me, twisted into an accusation I never deserved, I wanted to scream at him, to shake him, to pour every memory into his skull until he finally saw. But instead, I leaned forward, placed both hands on the table, and spoke low. You may not believe me, Daniel. Maybe you never will. But this house stands because of me. And the truth is, you've been living under my roof since the day you were born. That will never change. Claire broke then. She stepped forward, her voice trembling, her carefully polished facade cracking. This isn't fair, she whispered. You're old, Mavis. You can't take care of this place forever. Don't you see, we were just trying to move things forward, to make a future for ourselves. A future. I laughed, though it sounded more like a bark. By erasing the past, by pushing me out of the very home I built with my hands. That's not a future, Claire. That's theft dressed up in fancy words. Daniel stormed out then, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Claire followed after him, her heels clattering against the hardwood like gunshots. And just like that, I was alone. Alone in my house. Alone with my truth. The days after were strange. Daniel avoided me, slipping in and out like a ghost, slamming doors, refusing to meet my eyes. Claire's smiles disappeared altogether. She moved around me with tight lips and cold shoulders. Meals were silent, the air thick with resentment. But underneath it all, I felt a quiet power humming inside me. For once, I wasn't the one pretending. For once, I wasn't the one afraid. Still, nights were hard. I lay in bed listening to the wind howl through Madison's winter streets, my mind racing. I'd defended myself, yes. I'd claimed my place, yes. But what had I lost in the process? The boy I raised, the son I loved more than anything. Could I ever get him back? Or had the truth carved a line between us too deep to cross? One night, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. Their voices carried down the hall, muffled but sharp. Claire's voice, tight and furious. You didn't tell me she owned it. You let me make plans. You let me believe. Then Daniel, louder, angrier. How was I supposed to know? She never told me. She just sat there, letting me look like a fool. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands gripping the blanket, listening as their marriage cracked under the weight of my truth. A guilty part of me felt satisfaction, but another part, deeper and sadder, wished it hadn't come to this. All I ever wanted was family. Not power, not revenge, just family. The tension built until one bitter evening, when Daniel finally confronted me again. He burst into the kitchen, his face pale, his eyes wild. You ruined everything, he shouted. Claire's talking about leaving me. She says she can't stay here. Not with you, not like this. Do you see what you've done? I set down the dish I was washing, turned, and looked at him. No, Daniel, I said softly. Do you see what you've done? You let greed and pride and her whispers turn you against your own mother. You tried to push me out of my home, and now you want to blame me for the pieces falling apart? No, son, this isn't my doing. This is yours. He broke then. His anger collapsed into something else, something raw. His shoulders sagged, his eyes filled, his voice cracked like a child's. I just wanted a life of my own, he whispered. I just wanted to be free. Free. The word echoed inside me, jagged and cruel. Free from what? From me, from the woman who carried him, fed him, raised him. If love feels like chains, then maybe the fault isn't in the love, maybe it's in the heart that can't accept it. I reached for him then, but he stepped back. Too far. Always too far. The fallout didn't happen in one dramatic explosion. It came in slow waves, each one pulling a little more of my son away from me. First, Claire left, bags packed, her car tires crunching over the snow as she drove away without looking back. Then Daniel spent more and more nights out, not saying where, not saying with who. When he was home, the silence between us was heavier than words. And finally, one morning, he was gone too, his room empty, his closet bare, a note left on the kitchen table. I need space, don't contact me. Space, that's what he wanted. After all the years I filled every empty space in his life, he wanted distance. The house was quiet then, too quiet. I walked from room to room, touching the walls, the furniture, the things I'd worked so hard for. It was mine, legally, factually, undeniably mine. But what good was ownership when the very heart of the home had walked out the door? Some nights, I sat by the window, watching the snow bury the world outside, and I asked myself, had I won, or had I lost everything? The truth gave me strength, yes. It gave me dignity, yes. But it also cost me the one person I had built my entire life around. Was it worth it? Could anything make it worth it? I don't have the answer. Not yet. Maybe one day Daniel will walk back through that door. Maybe one day he'll see not just the deed, not just the house, but me, his mother, the woman who gave him everything she had. Or maybe he won't. Maybe the truth was too heavy for him to carry, and he'll spend his life running from it. All I know is this: the fallout of truth is never clean. It breaks things, yes, but it also clears the ground. And now, standing in the quiet of this house, I realize I'm still here, stronger than they thought, stronger than even I believed. So if you're listening to me now, wherever you are, ask yourself, what truths are you hiding? What secrets sit in your own cedar box, waiting for the right moment to rise? And when they do, will you be ready for the fallout? Because truth, my friend, is a storm. And once it arrives, nothing is ever the same again.